Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. We're doing replay reviews again. This time we're going over TvZ and our slightly updated TvZ build that opens 2 factory. For TvT, we like the build that we're doing. We like the bio tank with the option to go late game tier 2 mech. We can play that bio tank with medevac or Vikings basically. And adapt to what the opponent is doing. Our preference would be to play with medevacs. TvP, we do not have a cohesive build that is ready for a YouTube tutorial. If I did a YouTube tutorial on TvP right now, it would be disingenuous even at this MMR. So we're going to hold off for that until I can refine what we're trying to do. Basically, we're trying to experiment between cyclones versus mines for the early factory unit that we're getting to complement our Marine Marauder medevac. So we know we need a factory unit to go with Marine Marauder medevac. Is that mines, tanks, or cyclones? We're trying to figure that out. So let's jump into these TvZ replays. Both of these opponents are 3K Zergs. Okay. TvZ, we just watch our side. We're going to do our same opener, which is Reaper Fast expand into 2 factory. '17 Scout is looking for a normal hatch first. Ideally, the spawning pool is not done yet. Reaper is looking to see that there's lings and drones at the natural and is trying to identify where he's trying to take the third. A Reaper dies on the map. Let's pause here for a second. Let's go back to 330. And let's reposition the camera. And basically what we should be doing here is we want to put a depot here and then rally to that depot so that when we complete the wall and close off, we're still rallying to this depot. So this is going to be our rally point until we're on war bases. So he sends lings across, and our Hellions are obviously not in good position. We should probably be on the ramp. So now we're getting ready for our attack. Ideally, this is with 5 Hellions and 3 Cyclones. So we're a couple of Hellions short here. We build the wall, and then we want to keep it open for the reinforcement, the option to reinforce, and we want to watch the fight. And then basically what we should be doing now is instead of once the army's on the other side of the map and we start fighting, that's when we need to close the ramp, and then out of the factories we should be reinforcing with Hellion and tank to the depot. And what that's going to do is help us with these counterattacks that we end up dealing with. So we're fighting at the third. We always assume that there's going to be a lynx around. Okay. So he's heavily up in supply right now. We've got 3 Cyclones at home to defend. Here comes his counterattack. It's Roach Ling. And if we had a couple of tanks, it would just shut this down at the wall. Okay, during that we teched up. We went up to 5 factories and added the starport, and we added the tech structures. We're building 1-1 and we're building upgrades. So Blue Flame and Cloak for the Banshee. And obviously there's an opportunity to harass with the Banshees, but we're just keeping everything together. Macro is far from perfect. We're just going for big picture stuff, and basically the big picture item here is the third. On a map like this, we want to take the linear third, because the linear third is a high ground third, and the triangle third is a low ground third. So since we want the 3 orbitals, that's the setup we're going to do. We've got our 4th CC in the main base, and we're defending the high ground with tanks, which is what we want to be doing. This base is very hard to run into right now. And then we should have a 3 tank setup guarding the net, and we would be in good shape. Put the army in front of the 4th, take a planetary. With the 2 sensor towers set up, now we're comfortable to move out on the map. So we're just trying to find his army. Our reinforcement is just Thor, Hellbat, Banshee, which is our most A-movable composition. And opponent's basically playing the same way we are, right? They're doing F2A move. They're not doing like Dropper Lords. They're not doing Nidus. But if they do Nidus now, we know to leave tanks behind to deal with any future Nidus worms. And then on this map, the expansion pattern is basically down. So first, second, in this case, third on the high ground. Then we take the linear third as the 4th. And then we float expansions down to this position. And then these bases are like the contested bases, because you can see that both of these have ramps leading down to it. But the difference is on this side, it's 2 ramps on his side, 1 ramp on my side. And over here, it's 2 ramps on my side and 1 ramp on this side. So I'd have to say that the split map, this is my base, and you draw the line down the middle like that. But this base is the last base you would want to take, because it's the next level low ground base, right? So we have all the bases that we would be comfortable having. We have decent saturation, and I think we fixed it at some point during the fights. And we're going up to 3-3. Opponent has done a good job of getting up to 3-3 on their side. So opponent basically has Lingbane upgrades. They've got Roach upgrades, and they've got, why can't I think of it, Hydras, and they've got Ultras. So that's what they're playing. They're playing Lingbane, Roach Ravager, Hydra, Ultra. They're not playing Spellcasters, Investor or Viper, which would be scary. They're not playing Lurker, which would be scary, but we've been adding the Banshee specifically for Lurker. And then the other scary thing would be Broodlord. So we're scared of Spellcasters, Broodlords, and Lurkers mostly. But anything else, theoretically, we should just be able to F2A move against. So he does use Viper. He uses Blinding Cloud instead of Abduct. But this army is basically okay playing at melee range. And then opponent GG well plays. We appreciate that. You know, and then the advice for this guy would basically be you can split more, right? Do run bys with Lings, do Niduses in the main, and you don't necessarily need to do Dropper Lords. That's more gimmicky because the turrets can deal with that. But basically, run bys and Niduses at this stage in the game would obviously be good. And then on the units lost, we're 10k more efficient, and we have 6 bases. We just didn't take this base. Last thing we'll look at is our upgrades. And then for upgrades, we're basically exactly where we want to be. We've got 3-3 Mech. With the 3 Mech upgrades, everything but mine burrow, right? Burrow speed for mines. We don't need that. And then we've got the 2 Banshee upgrades. And then we're making the Banshee weapons, +1 weapons. So there's a question of tech structures. In Mech, we've been sticking to 3 tech structures. I'm willing to go up to 5 in any matchup. I think that's the limit. And then, the question of what would we want to do? Should we go 3 armory? Should we add Ghost Academy? Should we go double eBay for Ghost upgrades? Or should we go Fusion Core basically for lib range? And maybe a battlecruiser transition, but I don't necessarily think so because we're not upgrading ship weapons. So I think the Fusion Core is the least priority in this matchup. And then it would make sense to either go definitely Ghost Academy if we have to go Ghost to counter spellcasters. So Ghost Academy is definitely in, and then the question is double eBay for the upgrades basically just for ghosts, or triple armory to get the air weapons at a more reasonable pace. So I don't know. Probably I would say if you go Ghost Academy, add another eBay, and then just do the 1-1 upgrades for bio. Okay, let's watch the next game. And obviously we're adding more racks with that Ghost Academy. We basically want to do something like 8 factory, 3 starport, 3 to 5 barracks. 853 is probably good, where it's 8 factory, 3 starport, 5 barracks for ghosts if we go ghosts. Okay, Reaper Fast Expand. Slow to put on the second gas, but the factory timing is good. Okay. Factory timing all looks good enough. The depot comes down when we need it to, and we should be rallying to this depot. This is our rally depot. Okay, we want to get the wall up, and then now we go out for the attack. Take the gases behind it. Opponent gets the full scout with Overlord speed. And then now we're ready for the attack. So the wall is up. We're making gas. We're making SCVs. That's great. At home, we're making Hellion. And what we want to do is switch the rally to this depot and make Hellion tank and Marine. Make Hellion tank Marine. Rally it to this depot for the inevitable counterattack, which we should always be expecting now. On the other side of the map, we're ready for our attack. We have exactly what we want. We have 3 Cyclone, 5 Hellion, with the 2 additional barracks units that we opened the game with. What's opponent got? So opponent's making a layer. They already made Roach Warren, and they made their safety roaches. So they got the full scout, and they made their safety roaches. Where are they? In the cocoons? Do they count as made and making at the same time? That would be interesting if they are. So we're fighting at the third. Opponent goes for that surround again. And they clean us up with Roach Ling, which is fine. And then we F2 down to the bottom. And again, if we had Tank and Hellion, that would be much better than Tank Cyclone in that situation, I think. It would push them off our wall a lot easier. Okay, so now we're going up to 5 factory. We're getting our starport. That all could have been a lot faster. We keep our tank repaired. And then now for the rest of the game, we're basically going to be fending off attacks from the opponent. So we try to take our third. So we're basically trying to hold this position here. I like what opponent does with his overlords there, where he sets that up with the creep. I lose a lot of tanks to that because, again, like the tanks need to be positioned defensively in the situation. The tanks are not mobile fighting units. They need to be positioned defensively, 3 guarding the entrance to the natural, and then another 3 guarding the third. But once I have the Banshees, it's much easier to parry this. So the Banshee Hellion Cyclone is basically my mobile fighting force. The tanks are a stationary fighting force at this stage of the game. Now we get the wall up on the third, which is critical. Because that's where opponent wants to fight. We're comfortable pushing into them. The Overseers die, so now the Banshees have impunity. And then now we double expand behind this. We also assume that in the lull that opponent is going to build a spire, so this is when we start taking our missile turrets. We're going 2-2 with building upgrades, and we're going to take the 4th and 5th simultaneously. Both of these will be planetaries in forward positions. We have a wall for the 3rd, so we really just have to defend this angle. Like slightly up into the 4th, but mostly defend this ramp for this angle here. We even have a sensor tower on the high ground. Opponent tries mutas. What happens to these mutas? So now he's got muta and fester, tries to fight head on. But all that just dies. We've got a ton of tanks. And we haven't quite gone up to Thor's yet, but we're basically starting our Thor transition. We added a bunch of extra turrets. Got 3 there, that's good. We've only got 1 here. And we've got a few too many. We got a couple too many in the main. These are redundant. These are kind of redundant. So we got some redundant turrets in the main. It would be better to just do the edge and then the mineral line. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is probably fine. And then only a little bit of the production is vulnerable, like maybe over here. You can even consider doing like a turret there. And then continue the ring like that. So basically turret ring the main and the natural, and then the satellite bases, you can just turret ring the SCVs. Here I did it like that. So just mineral sinking turrets, basically. Going for the high ground 3rd is kind of key here. So for mech play, if there's a linear 3rd that's on the high ground, that's what we want to take. And then we want the low ground triangular 3rd to be a planetary. That's very key. And then we're going to make Banshees the whole game. The mid-game composition is going to be Battle Mech with Banshees, with tanks holding the defensive line. And then the late-game composition is Hellbat Thor, Banshee, where we can also have some defensive tank. And then if we absolutely have to, we can add a Ghost Academy and add in Ghosts if we're having a hard time dealing with some combination of Viper, Infester, Lurker, or Broodlord if the situation calls for Ghosts. But at our level of skill, we don't necessarily want to add Ghosts. We'd ideally be playing with this composition, transitioning into Thor Hellbat. And then on the upgrade front, we're looking for 3-3. We're looking for smart servos when we transition into Thors. and our Banshees, we should get Cloak and Speed in line, basically, off the one factory, off the one star port. So as we're queuing up Banshees initially, we should also be getting Speed. So Cloak and Speed, continuous Banshee production is pretty good. And then if we had more multitasking capabilities, we could use the Banshees on the map for harassment throughout the course of the game. And we can be doing harassment with either the Banshees or with Hellion run-bys. So that's basically our choice for being out on the map after the attack on the third. So the attack on the third is scripted, and then later in the game, if there's not any action on our side of the map, we should move the Banshees to their side of the map. And then we have an excess of Hellions. We should trade some out by doing run-bys, basically, and just kamikaze them into mineral lines. So yeah, that's the build, slightly modified, and against slightly better players. From an MMR perspective, the other games where we went over 5 wins in a row showcased a couple of better responses by opponent at the end. Specifically, the last 2 opponents in that video both did Nidus Worms, which I think is very effective against this style. The way I lose most of the time is opponent who is really good at splitting, and a part of splitting is using the Niduses, right? So they're either really good with their spellcasters, and or they're good with splits. And we play against the spellcasters a good amount, but there's a difference between the players that are good with the spellcasters and the players that aren't. So like the good spellcasting is basically when they're doing abducts and neural parasites. And the bad spellcaster use is when they're using fungals and blinding clouds. Those are far less effective. So I'm not seeing parasitic bombs against the Banshees ever, and I'm rarely ever seeing abducts. I'm mostly seeing blinding clouds on tanks is what they're trying to do, and then they're just trying to use fungal as like an offensive spell. They're not using fungal alongside Lingbane to get a surround, which is what the pros use fungal for. Don't quote me on that. That's just, take that as like opinion. But the way I think that they usually use fungal is as the root, and then they surround with Lingbane, right? Especially against a comp like this, which is highly mobile, right? This is a kiting composition at the end of the day. So anyway, TVT and TvZ, I think we have really solid builds and good content for YouTube at this MMR. I think this is Plat 1, Diamond 3 appropriate, certainly. So, okay, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Take care.